All this, we are what we eat, and I'm reminded of a story I was told by James Dyson, who's the provost at the Royal College of Art, and when he turned from designer into manufacturer, he opened his first factory, his first vacuum cleaner factory in Malmesbury. He decided that the workforce, which were largely bussed in from South Wales, that they would eat quiche and salad, and he had two very nice ladies from Malmesbury come in every day and make this wonderful, wholesome, tasty food that he thought was very important and edifying for his workforce. There was a complete revolution, and there were petitions and deputations, and within a fortnight, chips were back on the menu. So it's interesting, the relationship between corporate control and food. Food takes us neatly onto our next theme, which is health, and diet has a big part to play in that. And I'd like to welcome Scot Smith, Commercial and Business Development Director, Corporate Wellbeing at Nuffield Health. Scot is going to outline Nuffield's workplace wellbeing strategy and tell us how theory can be turned successfully into practice. So please welcome Scot Smith.
Hello there. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're going to take you in, it's really as a good follow-on from what's been discussed a little bit earlier. But just to take you a bit of strategy in health and well-being, we all have a large amount of employees working for us in our companies. And today, again, within 20 minutes, trying to discuss a bit of the strategy that we've investigated and the outcomes thereof. So my colleague was hit quite hard yesterday, as a lot of people were asking us, who are Nuffield Health and what do we do? So I thought I'd just give you a small outline of Nuffield Health as a company. We're the UK's largest non-for-profit organisation. We don't have shareholders. The benefit behind that is whatever profits we make, get reinvested back into the business to make the necessary acquisitions and improve our services to the consumer market and to the corporate market. We are steered by a board of governors, who are obviously our trustees as well. As a company, I'll just give you a snapshot, we have 31 hospitals, 64 health clubs, 6 medical centres, 40 health assessment centres, 66 rehabs, and 202 on-site corporate facilities. As you can imagine, we've got a lot of clinicians working for us, and we're the largest employer of physiotherapists outside the NHS. So it's talking about wellbeing today, and I've taken a couple of snapshots of the data that's out there at the moment. So from the FTSE 100 companies that reported on employee wellbeing, it was derived the fact that they outperformed the companies that didn't by 10%. Presenteeism cost the UK 15 billion, which is twice that of absenteeism in the organisations today. Absenteeism due to mental health problems cost the UK business £8.4 billion. Only 18% of individuals are experiencing a high level of well-being. Now that's quite a frightening statistic if you look at the overall population of the UK. And poor health within the population of the corporate market estimated between £400 and £600 per year. So for those of you that do work with large operations, do the math and it could be quite frightening. So we partnered up with Ashridge Business School in order to do a real in-depth investigation about health and well-being, about devising strategies on how do we get the best out of our employees, how do we put a good well-being structure in place. And it was very interesting. We interviewed a vast amount of employees through surveys, a number of chief execs and head of HR, benefits and so forth, and a number of employees went through a survey analysis. We found from our investigations that there are 6 different strategic lenses that tend to drive decisions about companies investing in health and well-being. Most organisations do have a primary lens, but they'll usually focus on a secondary lens as well, and I'm going to take you through those now. So the first lens, we looked at a well-being culture, and funnily enough, out of this lens, this is the one that Nuffield have taken on ourselves, and I'll go through a little bit what we're currently doing. And even though, just to reiterate, that we are a health and well-being company, have we got it right? Probably not. We're working through it. We've taken a lot of feedback, a lot of advice from people, and this is part of the strategy going into what we're doing at the moment. So the well-being culture is a lens that a company would look through in order to put a well-being strategy in place. Whoopsie. Sorry, that's yours. Thank you. It's an effort to establish a real positive engagement with employees. It's very much led from the top. So for those of you in organisations that have seen an HR manager or a head of benefits looking to drive a health and well-being strategy in the organization, unless it's being driven from the top or being sanctioned from the top, it's very, very hard for that benefit scheme or award scheme to get off the ground. It tends to have a broader definition where it focuses on the social, environmental, and physical exercise of your employees or general well-being. And part of that, to ending off, is about producing a number of benefits as well, via through a flex or a selection platform. The second lens that companies may decide to choose is about sustaining those top performers. There's a certain population within an organization that are the talent, the people that bring in the revenue, the people that want to invest in. So companies will focus their attention on their benefits for those individuals within the organization, but basically a real focus on retaining. The third is a war for talent. We find this very much in the financial sector and legal. They really are focusing, and we talked to a couple of brands that have been thrown around today that we work with. It's about being viewed as the best employer, the place that you want to go and work. Even in some cases, when they're doing interviews with new candidates, the candidate will literally go past the restaurants, will go past the swimming pool, will go past the health club before they even get to their interview. And it's a way of showing them how they are different from the competitors out there. But it's a strong focus on how do they really engage that new employee and retain them for the future. Productivity and absence, emphasis on productivity and efficiency. It's very much having that employee in the right place at the right time, and it must deliver the needs of the organization. It's very, very, very specific. Compliance and risk management. We find this in the oil and gas or companies with large production lines. Very much, the risk is compliance, and financial reputations are on the line, and they have to adhere to all health and safety standards. And there's a strong focus on duty of care for the employees. And this is the last one, the cost of ill health. Again, I'd say all companies will have this in their remit. So this will probably be a secondary alongside the primary focus. But again, managing controls or any controls associated with employee benefits and relevant to all organizations. We need this to survive in order to survive. So those are the lenses. As I've mentioned, it's not one size fits all. There's no silver bullet solves the problem. But the research that we've done, and we're obviously more than happy to share the case studies and the interview feedback that we've got from employees, chief execs, and companies as a whole, it allows you to start looking at a strategy, but knowing where to start. A lot of companies are out there, and they've been given a sanction by the board. We need a health and well-being strategy for our employees. Our claims on musculoskeletal are through the roof. We're having a high turnover of staff. All these things, but it's where to start. So this research that we've done from Ashridge could support you on this. A little bit of insight. I was going to throw up Nuffield Health's absenteeism rates and the cost there, but I thought maybe you'd get a bit bored with that. But if you want to discuss those, quite happy to divulge that information. So we put a structure in place that, and again, we've pretty much started this at the beginning of the year, a bit last year, and a lot of it is kicking into gear in the first quarter for next year. But we've realized that it's critical to have a foundation before you start anything in a well-being strategy. And paying the correct wage is sort of a non-negotiable. So Nuffield Health are moving forward on paying the living wage and not the national average. We know that companies, and from the feedback, that you may have fantastic benefits, fantastic platforms, but if the wage is not right, it's not going to really fly. Having fair policies, having a real good environment within your work in, and what mentioned a little bit earlier was having the right office environment, having the restaurants, the cafes, the breakout areas, making it an environment that people actually want to come to work in. The second we worked on is total health management, and we broke that into prevent, diagnose, cure, and protect. And this is about prevent. Again, when an employee joins us, we get a free membership to our health club, they get a free MOT, flu vaccinations, anything that you could imagine that would, again, be more preventative and proactive when it comes to healthcare. Diagnosing with EAP programs, CBT specialists being available. Again, being joined up so that an employee has a path to follow. The cure, again, medical findings being referred to GPs, occupational health nurses. And then to protect, providing the pensions, the private medical insurance, and again, following on with EAP. Going on to community. This is very much the sharing of success, the social events. In organizations, it's quite tough to sometimes get everyone together. Nuffield Health as I've shown to you, it's quite a big beast, and we quite openly admit that we were, a year or so ago, working very much in silos. People working in our hospitals wouldn't even talk to people working in our fitness and wellbeing sites, talking to our corporate teams. So being able to get these guys joined up as a community and know what each other does in the organization makes a huge difference. Having the social events, the Christmas parties, the summer barbecues, fun runs, fun cycles, whatever you can do to get these teams together, all contributes towards health and well-being. The next one we want to is leadership, and this is for us extremely critical. We're investing a lot of money into our leaders. We realize that you can have fantastic wages, you can have great benefits, everything from bikes to work to free private medical insurance. If the leadership is incorrect, and I'll say incorrect, probably the political term, if you have bullies in the organization, it kind of, you lose all momentum that you're trying to push out from a being point of view. So we, as an example, are doing a lot of training with our leaders about best practice, how to identify any stress within the workplace. How do you get the best out of your team and take best practice from each other? And that's an ongoing program that we run with all leaders within our business. And then values, the behaviors. We want to make sure that people are joining Nuffield because they like what we're doing. They think we're doing the right stuff in the marketplace with our community, our apprenticeship program. The volunteering schemes is new to our business, where the company will pay for an employee to take the day off and do community work. But it's when they have a personal charity that's close to their heart. So these are the kind of things that I'd like to leave you with. But again, it's a strategy. We're still early days. So far, it's been well received by our employees. And I think the biggest challenge, as what we all do, is to retain the good people in our business, to get the best out of them, make sure that they are at work and producing the results, but at the same time really loving what they do and who they work for. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So we've had a little trajectory here from Primo's amazing West Coast environments through diet and food to health. Some comments from the audience, some questions, and I'll direct them to either Primo or Scott or Barry and Philip. So a hand was up here. Ian, yeah, if we could have the, and then we're going to go there. And then if we could have mics standing by for our speakers as well.
I'm Ian Weddell from Shinarts. Question for Scott, please. You mentioned that only 18% of people have a feeling of well-being. How do you measure well-being?
Well, there's a whole definition.
Can we get a mic to Scott as well? Yeah.
Hi there. We were going to put a definition up, but it's basically being able to get someone to work at their optimum level, with a level of health and well-being that they feel is acceptable to cope with family life as well as work life. And we found that from a well-being perspective, a lot of companies say that well-being stops when they walk out the door. What we've done is, if the employees allow us, is actually to engage in the concerns they may be having at home. But well-being, it is one of the biggest topics out there. It's being thrown to the forefront, but how do you actually measure it? You know, we're working it off assessments, off general surveys, medical questionnaires. That's how we're measuring at the moment. But there is a lot of research that's gone on. There's 3 booklets that have just been published now, and it does take a large, I think it's about 10,000 employees and a large number of corporate clients, and each of them are specific on their findings on what well-being is to them. And I think, yeah, that's probably one a good thing to finish that off is well-being to a company yourself, depending on what culture you're trying to portray, it is very unique. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. So there was a question over here. Yep. Jim Reed again from Arab.
Thanks. Yes. This is for Primo, really. The workstation settings and the designs and all of that good sort of modern way of working that you showed us is getting to be used a little bit here, although there's still a lot of sort of tea station culture that Philip was talking about. But the one thing I'm really interested in, and something you said only once, was the 80-20 rule as it applied to people spending 80% of their time actually working on company business and 20% of their time doing stuff that they wanted to do on their own. Now, I like that, but I'm not sure that my financial director would think too kindly about that, and I wondered whether you could just enlarge on that a bit.
Sure. Well, if you saw the one image at Facebook, it's that hacker culture and the idea that they actually have these hackathons where they write code for fun. And this is not fun to me, but this is fun to an engineer or to a young programmer. So from that, companies like Microsoft, actually it was just documented yesterday in the Wall Street Journal that Apple is trying to provide some personal time so that people can work outside of their projects. And I think what it does is just provides contrast and a break from their day-to-day routine. And the work cycle is no longer 9 to 5. A lot of the spaces we're developing these days actually have nap rooms because engineers will come in at 10 and sometimes they don't leave till 1. So the work cycle is different. So to give them these places for a little bit of rest, for a little bit of downtime to do personal work actually adds to their overall productivity. The conversation should really be about those productive hours during the day because actually we all have work rituals that we go through. We get our coffee, we do our things, and we have these things that we do during the day to get us in a position to maybe get 2 hours of good work, or if we're lucky, an hour. So I think what they're doing is they're installing these programs in order to get those really pure hours of heads down, good engineering is what it comes down to. So the 80-20 rule, almost every company has it, or they have what is called a hackathon, or these events that you've seen in The Social Network, the movie. At Facebook, the hackathons happen once a month, and you could tell because the office looked like a mess the next day, because it would just be, free-flowing, coding all night long, and everybody was invited. And other companies realized that this was a great way to build code. A lot of these things become loss leaders or other projects that they develop. You're seeing now a lot of incubators in companies these days. So it's not just that there's an incubator farm in Palo Alto and Sand Hill Road. They actually bring them into the companies and create these co-working environments that promote that. So I think, I hope I answered your question, but that's how it came about.
Okay, thank you. Time for one more question. Anybody want? Yeah.
I suppose I've got a bit of a mixed feeling about providing food in the workplace. I mean, I agree a lot of what was said about, creating good collaborative spaces and encouraging all that good stuff. But at the same time, we've just been listening to discussion about well-being, and isn't it quite good to get people out of the office, have a walk, find a bit of variety, perhaps mix and be stimulated by people who aren't in your own workforce. We were also talking earlier today about people wanting less control and not really working for a big organisation. So maybe the idea of keeping people in a building during the whole working day is the wrong idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting point you make because there is a dichotomy here, because controlling your food intake is probably the most advanced form of corporate control we've had yet. And yeah, I went with some people here on a trip of Google last week, and their strategy in London, their St. Giles Circus building, their strategy is to get people in the building early for breakfast and keep them there until late at night. So it's an interesting, the relationship between food and well-being is a very interesting one. Barry, I don't know whether you want to just say something on that subject.
Yeah, this works.
Yeah.
I think my philosophy is that you need to give people choice. It certainly isn't about forcing them to do anything, but giving them the opportunity. A lot of work goes on in business parks where you can wander around outside, but all you're going to be looking at is other offices. And it's quite a trek to get to the sort of the town square or whatever, where you would get the alternative choice that you would want. So I think in those situations, it can only be good to try and give people choice within the building, and also perhaps give them the opportunity to spend a little bit of time walking around outside if they want the fresh air. Or why not create the restaurant to bleed out into the outside as well, so that on a nice day you can sit outside and eat. So I'm all for that. Also, just again, you're offering the chance where it comes to health and wellness. You're giving people the chance of the information which they can then use themselves. So it's not a case of forcing everyone to have their own nutrition plan, and having alarms going off at the till if they're sort of not eating their approved food. But it's a case of, if people have got a problem or they want to lose weight like me, it can help. But it's certainly not Big Brother at all. It's the reverse.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So we move now on to our, we've had 3 diverse presentations, but linked to a theme. We now move on to our second part of this segment on people working together. Please welcome Sarah Dillingham. She is a Global and Infrastructure Knowledge Leader at KPMG, and she's going to be talking about sharing knowledge and collaboration. So, Sarah.
Hello. Hiya. Okay, so I'm going to do my presentation in the style of a Pecha Kucha. For people who aren't familiar with that, it's really a way to make PowerPoint slightly less dull, and it means you don't spend longer than 20 seconds on each slide. So this means I'm going to race through my presentation, keeping it to headline points. But the benefit of that is that we can have some sort of dialogue at the end if people want to ask more questions. So, I've put all these terms up here because these are terms that people associate with knowledge management and with collaboration. And I just wanted to throw them up there to really highlight how over the last sort of 10, 15 plus years, we have lots of terms and jargon come and go. And we also have lots of technology come and go, and indeed build on it and become better. But one of the things that doesn't change is the fundamental business problem of trying to get the information you need when you need it to do your job. So I don't want to get into a big debate about what's knowledge because there have been endless theoretical discussions about this, but I'm boiling it down to knowledge is useful information. And in the context of a large organisation, this really comes down to information I need to be able to make that great sale, information I need to be able to come up with a new product or a new service and to deliver it. And the way that people get that is either through looking at the information that's held online within the organisation, by talking to other people, collaborating, sharing ideas, or by looking externally and pulling information into the organisation. Now, traditionally, knowledge management has really focused on getting content, capturing it, and putting it into databases. And this is something that sometimes is great. So I'm thinking about in law firms where you might have standard wordings that lawyers use over and over and over again. There's no point someone over here writing it and then the next week someone over here writing the same thing again. You might as well write it once and keep using it. But as we've heard earlier today, there really is a bit of a shift going on, and we still have fairly old structures in place in organisations. But actually what we really need to do is start making it easier for people to connect with one another. One of the things that's a real challenge is that people generally often don't know what they don't know, and they usually need to find it out now or yesterday. So when I'm at work on a daily basis, I will get fairly panicky calls about things with people trying to find information or connect with others, and they just can't do it. And examples of that might be where you've got, say, a very immature market and they need to get information to talk to their customers, and they need to get it from somewhere that's a more mature market. And it's only when they actually hit the real life problem that they know they need to speak to someone. Another big problem is where you have senior people who have fantastic in-depth expertise. They might have been working in their industry for 20 odd years, but they're heavily in demand and they're not really going to have a lot of time to answer every question from someone more junior who wants to tap into their ideas. So how do you capture that and push it out to the organisation? And one of the ways to do that is by connecting people, but also connecting people to content. So trying to get someone to just perhaps talk into a mic and capture a bit of audio on a key market topic. and then linking that to their internal social media profile really helps to connect people across the organisation. So this is a big thing that we hear, which is, I don't care where my information comes from. I don't care if it's from an external source or something internal. I just want an answer. And traditionally, large organisations, well, actually, we're still behind the curve with some of this, because we'll have a research or an information unit over there that mainly deals in external information, so perhaps even a traditional library. And then over here, we'll have someone looking after an internal database. And, you know, with any luck, they'll have made the effort to talk to one another. But often you don't get someone who's looking over it for all of a particular subject area. Now, for your practitioner, they just want someone to give them an answer. And this is where we're starting to see things move in a more interesting direction, a more powerful direction. Looking at technology, we can start to see tools that really start to mash up external and internal information sources and bring it all together. Now, going back to my list of old terms, you will have seen portal in there, which is kind of the idea of that. But now we've really got technology that does that much better in terms of streaming information together. So an example from my current organisation, from KPMG, one of the things I'm doing at the moment is I'm pulling together a great world map that, you know, when you click on it, you can pull out all the information on all of our projects. So our projects, so that's the internal project information, and it pulls together all the external information on the project. So that could be press, it could be subscription sources, but for the person working in our practice, they just click on their region and they get everything. Okay, so why doesn't anyone listen to the business? So the business, I won't do that. So the business complain about this frequently, and you'd have thought we'd have got past this stage. A long time ago, if you said to people, what kind of tools do you use for collaboration, they probably would have said Outlook. And if they were really pushing things, they would have said, well, we've got public folders in Outlook and we put everything in there, and we've got a shared drive. And around this time, people started saying, well, we need a bit more than this. And that's when we got the first wave of intranets. And I don't know if people remember this, but often they didn't go very well because we had an IT department sat over here and we had people in the business with a business requirement sat over here. And sometimes they just didn't communicate very well, or they didn't hear what each other were doing or wanted. Now, things have moved on a lot. And in terms of IT development, we've got methodologies like Agile, which mean that we take an iterative approach to those kinds of IT projects. But there's still a big risk here. One of the things I see happen a lot is what I call the vanity collaboration project. So the typical example of this might be where you've got someone in leadership who really wants a blog. And they only want a blog if the comments are turned off, and they're really keen, and they write in it every day for 3 weeks, and then bang, all of a sudden they forget about it. Now, when I say listening to the business, I mean don't just listen to the powerful people or the people with the money, because that's really easy to do. And this comes to a really critical point, which is you have to be thinking about what's the business problem I'm going to solve if I'm going to implement some kind of knowledge or collaboration tool. And that brings me to my next point, which is individuals collaborate with one another. They don't collaborate with technology. So again, why are they trying to collaborate? What is it they're trying to achieve? And then look at what's the technology that best supports that. It could actually be something you've already got in the organisation. It's really tempting to go out and buy something exciting and shiny and new. And, you know, I absolutely love that myself. But thinking about what you've already got and how it fits in with existing architecture is absolutely critical. Organisations fall down on this a lot, and they allow technology to get in the way of the conversation. Sorry. There are a whole range of organisational, what I would call stumbling blocks. And this is the first one. This is saying, I'm going to invest in this system, and I'm going to worry about the system first, and I'm not going to think about what's the organisational culture here, what are the politics, how can I make this work? So here are a few of those things. The first one is, I collaborate with people I like. This comes down to trust. People tend to collaborate with people that they trust. So if you've got your good piece of technology, it's easy to use, it's not causing any, getting in the way of the conversation, you really want to make sure that the people in your organisation have an opportunity to get to know one another. Now, we just heard about food, which I thought was interesting because the typical way for people in a UK organisation to get to know each other is through the pub. But I think one of the classic things is once people have had an evening together socially in a pub or out for a meal, they often find it a lot easier to work together. You get to know people, you build relationships. Now, that's a lot tougher in global organisations because we've got distance in the way and you've got a lot of virtual working. So in these instances, face-to-face tools like Skype, for example, have suddenly really come into their own, and they're really enabling people to build those relationships which contribute to better collaboration. This is huge, and this is one of the things that I think really kills collaboration in large organisations. I've seen it repeatedly. It's who gets the credit for this work. So if you've got a group of people who are working face-to-face, perhaps they're producing a document, how do you know who's contributed the most? Are they actually all going to share their kudos around that? Now, with internal social media, so products like Jive and Yammer, some of that edge comes off because you can see people's contributions. So that helps with that. But it doesn't help with the classic, I've got my targets to meet. This is phenomenal. And I think everyone in the room is probably familiar with the way that targets totally can skew internal behaviours. So the classic one of this is where you've got salespeople and you invest an enormous amount of money in a CRM, and what you find is the salespeople won't share their contacts with one another, so your CRM is pretty much rendered redundant. Profit and loss. Again, large companies, you might have your profit and loss between different countries or different departments. Really hard to motivate people to collaborate across profit and loss areas. A good way to do this is to get your subject matter experts and to not tie them to a single P&L, and then they'll be more willing to go out. I don't want to look stupid. I think this one speaks for itself. I hear from a lot of junior people who are reluctant to put their views up on internal social media platforms or discussion boards because they're worried that leadership are going to see it and, think that they haven't come out with a good opinion. So they tend to be a bit risk averse. A good way to deal with this is to get your leadership being fairly informal in their communications. You can't control conversations. You shouldn't try, and a lot of comms departments do. They want to really shut things down. But conversations need to happen in real time, and they need to be about the things people need to talk about. So that's usually customers and clients. Now, I know there can be security and risk issues around that, but there's not really much point implementing stuff unless it's going to let people do that. Play and time equal great ideas. So, in terms of some of the things we heard today, this is about not bogging your people down with loads and loads and loads of email so that they don't ever get any time to get together and chat and to exchange ideas. So I put this one in, it's like being in Minority Report, because someone has actually said this to me. A bit of a plug for Stilgess, who are one of the sponsors here, but they produce some technology called smart boards. And I was on a project that used them, and really one of the great things about that is you can touch text and move it about. This was interesting because we had older generation people absolutely loving it. Younger generation people have used this at school, so they were pretty nonplussed. So it's always worth thinking about, your different demographics and how they use technology. Mobile. It's ubiquitous. Everything you do in terms of collaboration projects and knowledge management projects and organisations, you have to be thinking about mobile now. There's just no excuse not to. And if you're not using it, someone else will already be doing it. I've got a great example of engineers who independent of any company initiatives, set up their own group to just share photos of problems and collaborate with one another. Which feeds into this. If there's a need, if someone needs to collaborate or share information, they'll find a way to do it. So if you haven't got internal social media set up in your organisation, they'll be doing it on a LinkedIn group or they'll be doing it on Facebook. It happens all the time, and it's a risk because you can potentially lose your IP. We're now at a stage where we can start to say knowledge sharing becomes greater than the sum of the parts. So by that, I mean there are a whole range of knowledge management and sharing techniques and technologies which are now seen as standard part of working life. An example of that might be a knowledge cafe, where people at a conference will often call it like a speed dating type event, where you have people sitting around the table and they all change round on the conversation. Feeding technology into that, so perhaps someone's live blogging at the time, so it pushes it out to a wider audience, really starts to be a bit more interesting, and we're getting away from this is a database, this is a community, and this is a live event. You'll always get people who say it won't work, so find the people who love it and go with them, and make sure that you really involve them right from the start and you get their input into any programs or technology implementations you do, because they're the people who are going to sell it to everyone else. So just finally, these are what I think are the keys to running a successful knowledge program or implementing a collaborative tool within a large organisation. Know your business problem. Make sure you've got good technology that's easy to use so that people aren't saying, how do I use this? But they're just getting on and talking. Know your particular organisation. I mentioned some stumbling blocks earlier, but every organisation are going to have them, different ones. Find out what people are already doing. So with the engineers sharing those photos, is there something you can do to piggyback on that? Like maybe capture the photos, put them into a database, and then really, really, really take the time to build relationships with the people who are enthusiastic, really properly involve them. Don't just do a consultation exercise that's really shallow. Make sure you really get their opinions. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We're gonna race through the next few presentations, and there'll be a chance to quiz Sarah shortly. But obviously, Sarah raised an important point that knowledge collaboration is between people. Technology is just there to support you, but it helps if you are, unlike me, a digital immigrant. You are a digital native. So our next speaker, I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Marie Puybaraud, she's the Director of Global Workplace Innovation at Johnson Controls. I've had the great pleasure of working over the last 2 years on a big research study at the Royal College of Art with Marie. So I know that she's one of our most progressive thinkers on new workplace cultures. And Marie's going to talk about digital natives. So please welcome Marie Puybaraud.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the introduction, Jeremy. It's also been a pleasure to work with you for the last 2 years. So here we go.
We're still talking to each other.
We're still talking to each other, so that's a great news. Today, I really want to present you the result of one of our latest studies on digital natives, which has been really a fantastic experience. I did not do it on my own. We worked with our automotive group of Johnson Controls in Germany to pull together some information on how the digital natives were using technology into their day-to-day life. So clearly the automotive group was interested to understand how this technology was going to impact the design of cars. And I don't know if some of you spotted, but a couple of weeks ago, a car manufacturer just integrated the first iPad into dashboards. So it is, going somewhere. But I also was very keen to understand how those digital natives were going to bring technology into working environment, and how the way they interact with technology was going to impact on our workplace and on behaviors in workplace. So the study gathered a large survey sample. We work with digital native experts We also followed digital natives around to see how, in a day-to-day basis, they were using technology and collect real data about where they were, how they interact with, their working environment, with their society overall, friends and so on. And I also tasked a group of young digital natives to illustrate the way technology was part of their life through a series of photographs, which I will be using throughout this presentation. So it is their own interpretation about the presence of technology around them. It was a fabulous experience because those kids, after a really deep conversation in my flat in Paris, they were presenting them the result of the study, they told me, hey Marie, it's like if we were born to be connected. And I thought it was really fabulous from those kids to hear that, because this is what the study was telling us. But them interpreting the result in this way was really amazing. Oops. So, who are those digital natives? What do they do? How do they use technology? We know they have a very strong connection with technology, every day, and they can't live without technology. And we'll see some real evidence of that, which are going to resonate with what Sarah was representing earlier. So digital native, they are an amazing group of individuals who were born with technology, and for them hearing the sound of a fax machine or one of these phones, which goes around, is something which makes them laugh a lot, because it's like prehistoric time, for those kids. And I always laugh, to watch them, buy a fax machine and think like, what do you use that for? And they are absolutely right. So digital native are 30 years old or younger, okay? And they've always known technology. Compared to digital immigrants, people like myself, and I guess many people into this room, 30 years old or older, and we all digital immigrants, okay? So it's important to make the difference. We looked at digital natives. We tried to understand this generation, what type of users they were, and how they interact with technology. And there's many ways they look at technology. Technology is present into, a day-to-day environment. Here's an illustration about how, they could potentially be working into a library. They constantly touch technology, that feeling of touching, having that physical connection with screen, with surfaces, and it's very intuitive. We know how wonderful the iPad is, and how much it's engaging you, to have that very strong relationship with technology, and that's the way they see it. They also have a lot of technology around them. When I send them out in Paris and say, look, guys, go out, what type of technology you would like to take with you? So clearly they dig out their own technology. And they picked up the technology I had around as an illustration about how they were multitasking. And very recently, my niece was showing me one of these videos of her into a classroom. And everybody was connected to music. The teacher was talking. They were using, their laptop. And I asked her, I said, is that a normal way for you to work? She said, yeah, that's normal. And I said, do you feel that you respect your teacher by having all this technology around? And she said, yes. We are very respectful. We just need of music, to get on with our work. And this is what the digital natives are really bringing in. So what are they doing about this technology? How is this technology penetrating into their life and as far as into work? Now, the global study surveyed 2,800 respondents. We focus on some markets like Germany, the UK, China, and the US to get enough data to be able to do comparative study. We talked to digital expert. We ran strategic interviews and days watching with some digital natives, and we engaged this group of 4 digital natives who came up with all those photos. So it's very clear that digital natives are globally connected. They're flexible. They're very collaborative into the way they work. That aspect of co-working is something they do extremely well already at school and in university. And they develop their own communication styles. Okay, that searching that Sarah was describing about having access to those data anytime, any place. And, you know, it doesn't stress them out to look for a document through the internet because they know they're going to find it, either through their network or through an electronic library. It's simply on the internet. Nothing stops them. They will get there. We know they are the same as us, you know, as human beings, but they are different. Okay, they're the same but different. They feel technology is an element to spice up their life. They also see technology as a feeling of freedom. Okay, they feel relieved when they are surrounded by technology. And we all know that if we remove that technology, we probably deprive them from an essential tool, you know, into their life altogether. So that issue of spicing up their life and freedom is very much there. When we ask them, you know, the level of identification they have with technology around them, they are telling us that we are Apple and we do Facebook. I mean, those two brands clearly have a very strong tie with those digital natives, but the fact that they see Apple as a clear representation of their generation, about who they are deep inside, is very, very strong. We do Facebook, that issue about social networking, being constantly connecting, sharing on a daily basis, even sometime overnight for some of them, you know, is a non-stop behavior. But that identification with brand is very, very strong. So Apple does have a very strong future. I am not sure if Facebook will have a very strong future, but certainly the technology is provoking in them some sort of need to identify with it. They're, of course, always on. That always on lifestyle is something which they have reported at all levels. They're connected 24/7, whenever and wherever. Probably the only time where they're happy to switch off is when they go on holiday. For them, going on holiday is getting away from technology. And it's also for many of us. But on the other side, and I'd like also in my presentation to warn you about some of the danger, they do feel completely cut off from the world when they disconnect. And it's something they have reported to us, that without technology, that feeling of cut-off is really increasing a lot. And that's across all the different countries that you know, we have surveyed into our study. Another thing they report on is that 58% feel naked and incomplete without technology. So technology is an integral part of their body. And when Oriane came up with that image, because she said, oh, we couldn't hold that BlackBerry, you know, on our hand. So, you know, she kind of inserted into the hand. That's how they see it. It's a new extremity to their body, okay? So you can be hooked to it, but that feeling of being naked and incomplete could be a little concern. You know, depriving them from the use of technology could seriously maybe endanger their health and their well-being, okay? Whereby for us as a older generation, we just may see it as like, oh, it's a good break, which is welcome because, you know, I've gone away with my BlackBerry. And I experienced that last week. I had no BlackBerry connection for 7 days. So of course you can imagine me, I was gagging to get connected anywhere I was. But on the other hand, it did give me a break. And I have felt it, you know, physically of not being hooked to that BlackBerry. 32.6% feel inefficient and cannot keep up with the pace of life without technology. Okay, so on top of being a new extremity to their body, they also see the internet as the way to improve the way they work, the way they live. Having access to data instantly is extremely important. But that feeling of not being able to cope with life and work, if they don't have that technology, we need to really watch that. I am very concerned about, you know, the health impact that it could have on not having technology around those people around. And I think last week I presented some of the results at another conference. I think it was Philip Todd's. Where is Philip? Who said, well, surely they can survive, you know, in the forest on their own. And they probably, of course, can. But technology is such a big part of their life that it may impact, you know, their behavior, their lifestyle. So why do they use the internet? Now, not surprisingly, business use is not the first reason why they use the internet. They do see the use of the internet very much for social activities, to get connected with friends and with family. Then they see it also for hobbies and special interest. And then in third place, for business education and information. Okay, so again, into that pyramid of needs around technology, looking at satisfying their social relationship, at work, their hobbies and special interests before they actually use it for business is probably what we need to look at, for digital natives. This is a very strong image, and I did not comment that image. It arrived to me again from those digital natives, because what they felt is that the level of addiction they were having with technology was so strong. It's like if they were injecting technology into their vein. And I was quite shocked when they come back with this image, but again, it's such a powerful illustration about how much technology is a part of their body. I mean, 73.6% completely agree that new technology are addictive. And with that issue of addiction, they also talk, on the other hand, about punishment if you remove it, about going onto a diet if you actually take away that technology. So living without technology is something which they do not envisage, at the moment. That digital diet, which we've been, talking about, I don't know if you have already heard, the terminology around, but they have that need to have exact planning, beforehand. They feel they helplessness, and felt isolated from friends where they don't have technology. They feel they miss out the outside world of information. And one of the digital natives we were following around was so much hooked to it that actually she felt she could leave a bedroom, and leave the technology, off while she was around the house, because she would be missing on information, from friends. Short, boring waiting period could not be bridged with random information input. Okay, so constantly having access to information is extremely important for them. Feeling cut off, 60.8% although feel cut off from their friends and miss out on a large part of their life without technology. Now that issue around social technology and as a social networking tool is very much inducing that digital divide which you can create by removing technology. So again, some very strong findings. In terms of work, clearly the pool of digital natives that we surveyed, part of them were already working, active digital natives, and we asked them about their relationship, to work and how they feel, they would be working as digital natives. No surprise there. They're very much attracted by, open space and shared, spaces more than they're having their own offices or even working from home. So that getting together is extremely important. Here, in this set of statistics, they report a high utilization of office of 3 to 5 people and open plan office environment. So we are on the right track in terms of what Dimo you presented, in terms of bringing all this type of variety of spaces, to this young generation. Although 59.8% are satisfied with the advanced technology they have into their workplace, we still have a pool of 40.2% who are not satisfied with the technology that they've got. And we know that we're very far from offering the best technology into our working environment. You'd be lucky if you get a high level of powerful technological devices around you into a workplace. Also the example we have seen this morning from what you presented, Dimo, is probably not what the majority of workplaces around us, actually have today. And I recently visited, some places around the world and some organizations who actually took the harsh call of just getting rid of the whole technology, like bin it, to replace it by Mac technology, a Mac Air, an iPad, an iPhone everywhere you go, in order to increase the level of engagement people will have with each other, through technology. So, those 40.2% of not satisfied, they are the future leaders of our organization. We need to pay attention to that. So what do they have to say? And I mean, that resonates a lot with what Sarah, presented earlier. That aspect around sustainability in the workplace is one of the top factors, although that wasn't the focus of my presentation today. But technology enabling convenient mobile working, there are natural mobile workers, there are natural co-workers into the way they experience, their life and work. Tools enabling flexible workplaces, and certainly we're down on the right track in terms of looking at the presence of technology into working environment. That issue around easy synchronization of data and information, absolutely essential. They could not live without having access to those data instantly, in real time. The second pool of result is very much focused on collaboration, easy to use internal knowledge management system, online, offline tools to facilitate creativity, workspace for offline collaboration with colleagues and partners. We've got to remember they're very agile to deal into a virtual world. They are not frightened about holding information for a very long period of time through a webcam. And it's something they're going to bring into our working environment. Platform for online collaboration. It doesn't stop them from meeting each other. That need to see each other is still very strong with those digital natives. They may be hooked to technology, but the technology is mobile with them wherever they are. And when they hook up with other group of individuals, they do need of that level of collaboration. Automatic information gathering, and distribution and classification, that knowledge and management is something which we really need to get on. Solution to help me change between real life work and virtual work. Again, they clearly can make the difference between those two worlds, but they need to have the ability to switch from one to another one very easily. And again, finally, the workplace allowing to combine social life and business life. So clearly, that 20% of social time, at work and at Google, as you were mentioning about, Dimo, is essential for those kids. How far they would go into making a clear difference between, hey, is my 20% of time socializing with my friends, and is my 80% of time working? I don't think them, probably the two will merge together. So in the workplace, what does it mean? And here are a couple of things. I feel that we really need to understand that mix between private and public life. What I mean private is being like your life, at home, and your public life, into your working environment. They're very cloud dependent. They have a very strong dependency on and addiction with the internet. They also have that ability to zoom in and zoom out through multitasking. And it's something which is very much into their DNA. They multitask all the time. They have leading edge technologies and applications, and they need of that. Now, if they don't have it, they're going to bring their own technology into the office, and they're already doing it. The issue of synchronization, being rapid, being very efficient, have a fusion of their technologies, again, a very strong thing we need to take into account when we look at workplace design. So just to conclude, because it's not all pink, there are some great things which the digital natives are going to bring into workplace, like speed, efficiency, transparency, integration, easiness of use of technology, precision and simplicity into the way they use technology. But on the other hand, our survey has also highlighted some real warnings around addiction, around that feeling of being cut off, isolation. The aspect of being always on should be a concern, especially for their well-being. The issue of punishment, diet, and helplessness. So there's quite a lot of things which are very positive about the digital natives, but also some concerns which I feel we need to take into account as already employers of digital natives and future employers of digital natives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.